it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. Well, I actually have some exciting news to share. That will be at about the 2-minute mark in this video, and I'll tell you about it in just a second, but I have these scraps today. Now, these are very plain scraps. There are some ripped up book pages, and then there are also some black and white, or sort of neutral tones scraps. Now, honestly, I looked at these and was like, not very colourful, doesn't really have a pattern to go with, not sure what I could do with these. I'll put them aside. I was doing another project and these were the offcuts, so I kind of couldn't bear to throw them out, but I wanted to show you what you are able to do with some really plain background scraps. Now, these ones came from the Simple Stories. This is the Simple Vintage Essentials. This is actually 12 by 12 paper, and I don't often purchase this, but this one here is just gorgeous. I actually couldn't resist. And I think lots of this I'm actually going to cut up for little pieces of ephemera. But I also could see this as being really good options to cut up for card fronts. Now, not all 12 by 12s are going to be perfect because often the images are sort of too large scale. But I think with this one, I could definitely see lots of options. And I also needed some larger pieces for some techniques that I was going to do, and I couldn't resist this one. So I'm doing a quick flip through. This is very, very speedy. Look at those bingo cards. They look like a lot of fun. These little typewriters and things, these could all be cut out individually. These pieces here would all be cut out individually, and then all of these gorgeous rulers and things. But anyhow, I had used up some of these pages, so these are not all complete pages. I have cut off them, and I think there's actually a couple missing as well, because obviously I use them in the project, but that's okay. You get the gist of the pack there. Now, there is a key to card making with these, and it is something colourful. But the other something colourful that I wanted to share with you is that I am featuring in a summit coming up. This is a free summit, of course, and it goes for 4 days from August 8th till August 11th. There will be prizes, pop-up Facebook groups to connect other card makers. There are so many presenters. I, of course, will be one. And this is around the holidays. Now, this is certainly not just around Christmas. This is every holiday that you can possibly think of throughout the year. And I think it is absolutely covered. So I will leave a link in the description box below this video. You can click on it and it will be a free link. You do not have to pay. Of course, there is an option to upgrade, and I think you get more instant access and longer access. But by all means, go for the free ticket. It's absolutely free. You can spend those 4 days of watching some beautiful videos and some gorgeous card making. So as I said, in the description box below this video, just click on that link and you'll be able to get access to the free summit. You want to sign up for the free ticket. Now, back to this video. We are going to do some weaving with these gorgeous scraps. Now, of course, these book paper pieces are only one-sided. So I don't have too many options, but honestly, sometimes that's a good thing. Less options is sometimes really good for me, I find. And so I just use a little piece of mint tape, and that is what I put one side of the woven pieces down onto, and then I work away. This sort of keeps everything still while I'm working with it, and I'm not fighting all the way. Now, until we get the back secured, I'm going to pop down a couple more pieces of mint tape. Don't throw this out. This is reusable. I have these stuck all over my desk, and I just end up reusing them until I finally do need to ditch them. Now, for these larger pieces, these are of course 12 inches long. I am going to roughly cut these in half, but honestly, I'm not bothered with measuring them because, we'll be using these and probably making them slightly smaller. So I'm just roughly cutting them where I think it's going to be in half. And then I'm going to do the same process. I have definitely sped this one up because you've just seen the one before, but these ones are in fact double-sided, so I do have a little bit more choice, but I don't really want any black or dark pieces in here. So I'm going to go with some of the lighter colours, just because I think that is going to take over the background a little too much. But you will find that even words and things, they disappear when you weave them into others. Of course, you're only seeing half of the image. So you can see here when I do add in one of the darker ones, it actually does work perfectly fine. Same with some of those words. I can see it says Emerson in there. And actually when I add in some of the the woven pieces on top of it, you can barely tell what the word is anymore, and it truly just becomes letters. So it does mean that even if you have pieces that you think, I don't necessarily love what they say or the actual whole image on it, try them and see what you think, because you might be surprised that by only seeing part of the image or partial pieces, that it actually might just work out to be perfectly fine. Now, through the very middle of this one, you can see that sort of tanny brown, pinky brown, I'm not sure what the colour is, but it stands out a little too much for me, and I want to replace it, but it is right in the centre of my image there. So actually, I tried to thread it through. I just need a little pair of reverse tweezers that are going to help me be able to thread this through. I am going to pull this one through, and then I will take the bottom one out. It just felt like it was sticking out a little too much for my liking, so that looks a little bit better there. Now, the back is a whole different story. It looks very different, but I want to show you some different options that we can use these scraps for and how you can decorate the front. So I'm going to do 2 finished cards for you today, and that hopefully gives you a couple of ideas of what we can do. So this is what we've got so far. It's looking pretty basic and a little bit interesting. I'm going to take my honeybee Deckle edge rectangles, and I have a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch piece of card front here. So just a plain piece of cardstock. I'm going to take some mint tape, hold this as it goes through my die cutting machine, and die cut out just this gorgeous edge. Now actually, we're not going to keep the inner part of this, we're going to keep the negative part that creates the frame. Don't throw those other pieces away, store them in the back of the packaging so that next time you want to cut that shape, it's ready to go. I'm using some 1mm foam tape. Now if you want 2mm, I just double it up and I just put one on top of the other. But if you want just a little bit of lift on your frame, then the 1mm foam tape is fabulous for that. I am going to peel off the release paper here and then pop this down onto my image. So I took away all the mint tape from the front. Then just move your image around on the front until you get, a spot that you like. You can decide whether you want it on an angle or whether you want it all going sort of straight in, lined up. And then from here, everything is relatively secure. But if you want to make it a little more secure, then you can definitely put some double-sided tape. I take a 1/4 inch, I think this is, and I run it down some of my strips. It just depends on the width of your strip. And if you didn't want to use double-sided tape, then you could just glue a strip of regular paper or cardstock or copy paper, like really thin paper, to the back here. Just anything to hold it in place. I'm not putting something over the entire back because there are gaps through my little strips there, and so I didn't want anything to show through. That's why I'm doing strips. But if yours are maybe cut instead of torn strips, then you might have the ability to get them a little bit closer together, and therefore you wouldn't have gaps. So just depends how you end up. Then I'm going to take my long bladed scissors. These are the new Tim Holtz ones, the recoil scissors, and I did a little bit of a review on these in a previous video, but I do really like them. I only purchased the big pair because this is just the one I mostly use. I love my little cutter bees, but I really truly do love long bladed scissors. Very much a great tool to have in your stash. Right, now we are moving on to the decorations. So I'm going to use the Still Unwritten. This is washi tape. This is from the company All and Create, and I recently got in a couple of these. I have another video which I can also link down below on showing you all 3 that I got of these. But basically, these fit together, and you just tear them where you see a very obvious gap in between. You can of course cut them. I think tearing them, kind of gives them that edgy look, but absolutely, by all means, cut. So you can see when I pull this out, you can see a really obvious gap where it's white in between, and that's where you tear. And then lining them up is very, very easy. So this is in real time and doesn't take me any time at all. And I want this gorgeous typewriter to be the center of one of my woven backgrounds. Now, I thought it would be quite nice because obviously there is text in the backgrounds and, a typewriter, but I don't want to actually just have this image. Now, I know this is going to hurt some of your hearts, and it kind of hurts my heart a little bit, but I'm actually just going to cut out the gorgeous typewriter. I do love the entire image, but there is more than 10 meters or 33 feet on each one of these rolls. I don't know how many images that equals, but for me that's going to be a lot, and it's better to use the product than have there sitting and hoarding it. So even if that means cutting it, and I want to show you a different way that you can use it as well, rather than just the entire image. Now I have fuzzy cut this out, and I want to put a little slot there because I'm actually going to put my own piece of paper in there with a little message on it. Now, I will say that there is actually enough room there to stamp your own message already on that washi tape, and it's going to be okay. If you were really wanting to make sure it's set, you could always use some clear embossing powder and heat set it that way, and you knew it would not go anywhere. However, I'm actually going to take this piece from the very first paper pad that we used, and I'm going to use this little, it sort of looks a bit vintagey, rusticy, oldish kind of paper, and I could have probably created my own, to be honest, but I'm actually going to just use half of this, and that will be the little note that is coming out, the little piece of paper that is coming out of my typewriter. So, as you know, I do very little measuring, but I really just want to, make sure it's roughly going to fit in there, and so I just keep cutting it down until it does. Then I have this little set from Gina K here, and although I love those gorgeous big ones, this is actually going to be perfect. I'm going to take the little happy birthday, but before I stamp it out, I'm going to roll the top there. I just think I really like the idea of the scroll. Now, I know that when they come out of a typewriter, they don't scroll. I do realize that, I promise, but I quite like the idea of it, and I think it looks really cute. It's not too much. I'm going to take the tweezers just to get a bit of a curl on the paper there, because my fingers obviously are too big to make this sort of a nice little curl. Just enough, not too much, and we still want to be able to stamp and see that sentiment really, really clearly. So I just give it a bit of a roll, and then I'll actually unroll a bit of it as well. I also am trying not to crease the paper. I'm trying to just get a roll, so to speak. Anyhow, I'm going to take that stamp. It is a little happy birthday stamp. Of course, you could truly use this for so many different sentiments. It would work really well. I am going to, just because that little piece of paper is so little, I just held it down with a little piece of mint tape, and then I'm going to stamp the happy, and then wipe it off, clean it, and then stamp the birthday down below it. And the text is not perfect, but I think it looks pretty cute and definitely fits the little typewriter. So once I have done that, I add on a little bit of extra glue. I chose to take off the release paper. Of course, you don't have to do that. And I'm putting this down onto a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card base, which is exactly the same size as the first piece of cardstock, the card front that we have. So it matches up nicely, creates a nice little border and frame. I pop a wee piece of double-sided tape to keep that in place so that someone can't take it out. It's not meant to be taken out. Although that would be very cool for a little interactive piece if you wanted to, that they could, change in and out the piece of paper. But anyhow, that's a whole different video. I've put a little bit of glue on the bottom there. And then I also decided to put a little bit of foam tape up behind the piece of paper there, the scroll, just so that it keeps that little bit of dimension. Of course, if it goes through the mail, it's likely to get flattened, but I'm not sure where this card is going yet, and so that's okay. If it goes through the mail, that's okay. It might flatten a little bit, but if it's given a hand gifted card, then maybe I'll just make sure that that's what I do with it. Then from the Graphic 45, this is the Shades of Blue flower assortment, and I'm really just going to take a couple of leaves from here. This sort of has nothing to do with the price of milk. I'm just popping these in as a little bit of extra something. You could pop in a little scroll or a little swirly die cut if you have it, but this is just what I had to hand, and they I don't think that they steal the show. I think they just add that extra little bit. So a couple of little bits of greenery worked in fine with me. Now, whilst I have this gorgeous flower set out, I also did a video recently showing a few different ones of these. These are some gorgeous pre-cut flowers with several different shades of blue, as it explains. And these make some gorgeous, beautiful, stunning flowers. Most of all, I love the idea that you can mix and match all of the flowers to make so many different varieties, so you're not getting all of the same look. Now I'm going to take a piece of blue cardstock here, and I'm going to use one size smaller of the Deckle edged rectangles. This means it's going to create a sort of inner frame. You'll see what I mean in just a second. Again, we're not wanting the inside piece, we are wanting the outside piece. Now the key to using these slightly more neutral backgrounds, these black and white or these textbook backgrounds, whatever you'd like to call them, is that you want to have something either bold or colourful. So for the first one, we went pretty bold. It's a one single statement piece that is the focal point of the card. And for the second one, we're going for colourful. And for that, I'm going to use these gorgeous flowers. They are beautiful shades of blue. Now, I'm not saying that you have to go, neon. I mean, by all means, go neon if you want to, but you don't have to go neon sort of bright. You just need to involve some colour. And so I'm going to choose blue for this one here. And that again, I've reinforced that by using the extra little blue border. And then I just snip along and cut the background out. We have really just used up all of these scraps to create a very neutral background. And of course, I have done so many videos on using up scraps, using up strips, using up like these little pieces I have right here. They would make a beautiful background in a brick setting. I have videos on how to do that too. In fact, if you'd like, check out at the end of this video on the screen, on the end screen, I will link the scraps playlist. And that just has heaps and heaps of videos available for you to see how to use up all your different scraps. Now, that might be circles, it might be triangles, it might be weird shapes, it might be ripped pieces, it might be tiny pieces, it might be strips, it might be colourful, it might be black and white. There is a way to use it up, I promise. Now, I can't remember if I mentioned it earlier, but I got a packet of blues of these flowers. I also got a packet of the neutrals. It's kind of creamy coloured ones and almost leaning into the yellows. And I also got the pinks. And these just have such an array of basically all different petals and flowers that you can layer up in so many different ways. So I'm going to go down the same sort of recipe for creating each one of these three flowers, but yeah, different types, and so they look each one looks a little bit different, so that's fun to be able to work with, really quick to put together. Of course, if you have the dies and you could either use pre-made paper, or you could you might have gel prints or something that you have left over that you'd like to die cut out of. You might want to ink it up yourself, all these different options, but it is sometimes okay to just use a pre-made element, and we put it together. We made the flowers ourselves. So you can also do that. Now, I don't want to entirely cover up the background because I still really like it here. And that's why I have all of those flowers just sitting on the frame nicely. I am going to add a sentiment this one. I think it needs it. This is from my free printables on my website. And I'm going to cut this down. Now, this one here I designed so that it has a double border. One, you can cut it out just like I have here, and it can go in. This was slightly too big for what I needed, so I actually designed this so you can cut down the second border, and it still has one. It's still got a nice frame around it, and that is going to make the image just a little bit smaller as well. So I will pop this one on here. This is Thinking of You, and that will fit nicely across round about the center. It could go anywhere. It could go a little bit lower as well, but just tuck in under those flowers. I add a little bit of foam tape to keep it nice and even because on top of the flowers is already popped up. And that is the second card finished as well. I hope you have enjoyed using up these neutral backgrounds and making the most of our scraps, and I am looking forward to seeing you in the next video. Don't forget the links down below for that free summit, and I will see you there as well.